How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. It made you sound like a robot a little bit, but should be fine. Okay. Just Instagram for you. So, thank you for joining me on Diversity Chat, where we bridge the gaps of diversity and destroy ignorance before it destroys another life. So, I've got some simple questions for you to start out. Okay. What is your name?
Salena Mason. My name,
right?
I said that's my name.
That's your name. And then where are you from? Where do you currently reside? You don't have to be like zip code, but...
Well, I was raised in South LA, like in the Crenshaw area, and I live in the San Fernando town.
And what ethnic group do you identify as?
Black African American.
Okay. And then what age, if you don't mind, I should say, what age range or are you?
No, I don't mind. I'm 27.
All right, awesome spot. So I like to ask the age for the generational perspective. You know, they be trying to hate on millennials. I'm trying to give us a chance here. Like, state your age, millennial. Let them know. Let them know we doing something worth doing. Oh, I've known you about at least 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I think like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you through Pearl Set Apart that Liliana started. Shout out. And which is a women's devotional group. And also we share love for Heather Lindsay and the Pinky Promise Ministry. Mm-hmm. So you are my foodie friend, my Pinky Promise friend, a listening ear, prayer warrior. So I wanted to have you on here today because I know you were really, shook after the George Floyd murder. And I wanted to know what you felt at that time when you first saw or heard about it, and even shortly thereafter.
I was horrified. I couldn't even watch the video. I just saw like a 2-second clip and then the pictures. I was like sad. I was angry. Ended up, just trying to process my feelings about that because I was also confused, like didn't know what to think. Like, is this real? And couldn't believe, in 2020 that that's something that would happen to anybody because I just was like, nobody deserves that, Yeah.
Okay. And then, how do you feel now? Didn't it happen on Memorial Day?
I think so.
It's June 24th. So how do you feel now?
I'm still, just of course upset that it happened. Sad, but not to the point of, I think, like sometimes sadness or emotions have paralyzed me. And then at this point, I'm like, I'm moved to action and I want to make sure that I'm being a part of the solution to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else, even though similar things are still continuing to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you want to take action. And then how are you processing your feelings then and now?
Let's see. Then it was kind of on Instagram and just in watching things and sitting and talking about it with some people. And then now I think it's a lot more prayer and obviously also chats like this, with you or publicly, privately, you and other people. And just definitely lots of prayer and research. That helps too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you researching and what are you hoping to find?
I've been looking up the organizations that are working to help the Black community, and then also there's like the petitions that they have, for Breonna Taylor, for George, and even Elijah McClain, which is someone I discovered his story a couple days ago. What am I hoping to find? Hoping to find the right partners that I can, help to just make it better in any way. I'm thinking about, possibly doing a protest. There's a group in the Valley that does protest daily. So thinking about joining that, but still praying and considering it. So it's another thing.
They're an existing organization or something you said you want to start?
No, they're existing. I think it's called Valley of Change.
Mm-hmm.
So
and they're protesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Where are they? Like, what are they changing location? Are they going to like a courthouse or like what are they doing?
No, they're in front of the Sherman Oaks Galleria every day. I think it's around noon, and they're just there with their signs, and I think they have like snacks and stuff after, and they're they have the cars that are honking in support and people that are building a community there, and it seems really cool. So,
like, what do you think is going to come out of that?
I'm hoping more awareness. But I think so many people are becoming aware, but those that are might want to shy away from it or ignore it. I think what can come out of that is the fact when it's in your face every single day, it's like you have to do something. You can't ignore it anymore. And so hopefully that causes people to think about their perspective of Black lives and also even their inward biases, hopefully. I think that's where the real change can start when we're looking within ourselves as far as our heart and thought process.
Yeah. I definitely think that, I agree. Like, it's probably having people in your face keeps that in your memory. But then it makes me also think about the time when I was a kid. I didn't want to put away my laundry. My mom would like put it right there at the front door. And then you just like walk over it because you're like, it's not bothering me. So like, how do we reach the people who can just glaze over and not really, it's not bothering them, or it's an eye roll, like they're in the way kind of thing?
I think it has to become personal. So if it's through building relationships with people of different ethnicities, or just having that, finding common ground, like, okay, you're like me, I'm like you, and seeing that it's an actual human whose life is being affected and not just idea of someone, that you can just ignore. And get hopefully.
Let's dive deeper. Okay. How do you get personal?
Well, that's what I'm saying, through building the relationship, because I think if there's people who, let's say if it's a person who's a different race, and then if you're choosing to intentionally build a relationship with them, then they'll see you as something more than just your color, I would hope. Of course, it's idealistically. But how else do you make it personal? Yeah, that's all I can think of. I don't know.
Like, could people start going, I was going to say Starbucks, but that's like a cuss word right now. But could people go to like a coffee shop when those open in their area and like have, I want to say like a diversity group, or like could people work together, join like a team and kick the ball around, call it soccer, like, stuff like that? Or
that's a great idea. Diversity chats in person as safely as they can, and then even thinking about just the people that say love food or ate the foodies. You can even have, that's such a basic and common thing that everybody needs and loves. So it's like if you can have I don't know how you do it now, but like a potluck or something where people can come together in a group and say, okay, this is for my culture and this is what it means to represent, and everyone's sharing and hopefully understanding each other more.
Oh my gosh, I love food. From different cultures. It's funny, I don't eat that much of it at once, but I'm like, what is that? And I remember my church back in LA, they used to have like this diversity thing where we would all bring food from our cultures, and there was like, I don't know how many countries represented that church. One of my favorite things about my church was that it resembled heaven, you know. Yes.
She's a goodie too.
For that comment, Liz. But it's like finding like maybe like similar interest, common interest in being able to see like humans. Like, you're a human being. Whoa, I like I don't know, I would say something far out, like what's something weird people like that you're like, okay, well, that's your group of people.
There's so many different things, whether it's like comics or, you know, different art styles, TV shows. There's so many things.
Yeah. Like a fashion show, like a diversity fashion show, like people
amazing.
Bringing their cultures, or even like a what do you call it? Like you know, like the taco trucks. Still talking about food here somehow, but the ones that do like the merge, they merge the culture. What's it called?
The fusion.
Yes, a fusion. Thank you. Like a fusion fashion show. That would be pretty dope to see. Like people blending. Like, here's Korean and African or whatever. Like parts out of me, Africa's this big, but like a part of like Zimbabwe and I don't know, South Korean culture come together, something dope together for a piece, and then like Indian and like, well, I'm gonna say Sri Lankan because what's up? I'm from Sri Lanka. Like, so in Sri Lanka, someone in like, you know, China or something. I don't know, but yeah, it'd be cool to see people come together, find something that they like, you know, that's similar. See that people are human.
That's a great initiative. I hope Fashion Week and, you know, all the schools out there, that they would think about that too. Because that's a great idea.
That makes me think of like how all these companies are like, we stand in solidarity with you. And then you're like, okay, what's that really mean though? So what do you think that means? And do you think that like they really do and that we'll see something come from that? Have you seen those messages on the websites and social?
I've seen a couple on social media. I think some do. It's been good to see like certain shoe companies that, you know, or say Netflix or something where that the Black community uses a lot, to say, okay, we know that you guys are a part of our community and we're not just going to stand by and say anything, because it took some companies longer to say anything than others. And I know that was something that was noticed. But it's also interesting, like I've noticed Crayola companies like, you know, the Band-Aids or they have ABC with The Bachelor. There's all these little things there where people have started to say, okay, we're going to try to promote more diversity. And it's interesting because I saw like a meme on here, or I think it was a tweet, and they were saying, that's nice and all, but we want more than that. So I'm hoping that's there. Huh?
What's more than that? Like, what can you expect a company to do? Like, let's say, did you say The Bachelor?
Mm-hmm. They're going to have a Black Bachelor now.
Oh, they're going to have a chocolate bachelor? Okay, cool. Like, I'm all late. Probably old news. Well, I mean, what do you feel like I feel like I hear people say we want people to stand with us, and then when people do, they say not good enough. Do you feel like that's like discouraging to a population of people, like everybody but Black people, who are trying to be like, you know, modern day abolitionists and trying to help, and then they get this like pushback? Like, what are your thoughts about that? You know, constantly saying, okay, but not good enough.
Yeah, I think it provides it's a hard standard to reach especially if the expectations aren't listed, or because some people, it's their first time speaking out or making any kind of change, whether it's in their company, in their own mindset or household. So I think it's hard. It can be unrealistic for some. So I think we also have to be patient and graceful as well with them. Even though for so many people, they might, like, some people don't have that luxury where they have time to wait. But I think with certain companies, even I'm thinking big corporations if they could have, inclusive meetings or a branch, a force, a task force where they have that, like, they have HR. So if they had maybe they do that, I don't know, but where they talk about that, like, okay, what is our cultural experience and how are we promoting unity and diversity and inclusivity here and within our own company.
Yeah. I wonder what like the percentage of companies do that. I know one of my jobs does that. I wonder if that's like something that needs to happen from the top, like what do you call it? Like, I guess from the government stance that it's a requirement down that companies have to, like all these other laws, like you can't do this, you can't discriminate off of these different things. That's mandated. Do you think are you saying like it should be mandated that there is, or did I put that word in your mouth? Sorry, that there is this requirement that people do require their people to, we call it cultural competency at my job, where we have training. Do you feel like it needs to happen like from the top in an enforced way? And if it's enforced, does it feel forced and people aren't going to be interested in maintaining it? Where like they'll go to the training, but they'll be like, like there's this, bad taste in their mouth about it. It's a big question, but whatever you want to answer.
That's a great point. I think that's definitely possible for people. Their hearts might not be in it. They're just like, I'm here. Okay, I did it. They check it off their box. I attended it. I think even with that, I wonder if they were to have those trainings, I don't know if it should be, in a way, I want to say mandated, but at the same time, because we have that possibility of them and not bringing actual change, I think it's up to also the individuals and employees, if it's allowed, to have those groups informally and formally to be able to talk about it. And also, I don't know, it's like being a person in even ABA, behavior analysis, and we talk about rewards and things. I was like, what if there could be incentives for it, even though you shouldn't have to reward someone for, learning about someone else, but something to make it more, to help soften their hearts so they're open about it. I don't know.
Incentivize it somehow.
Yeah.
Well, you do work in the school system, and you work with, was it high school age did you work with?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm thinking about, we're talking about companies kind of maybe enforcing, or governments enforcing companies to create, let's call it cultural competency, because I don't know anything else for it, or some kind of diversity training. But you also mentioned that it's going to be an individual decision, right? Like if someone is turned off by it, they just showed up, but they don't change. Like I did talk to a retired police officer, Regina Dudley, the other day, and she was telling me that they do training, but the police officers there's still people coming through the system that are not seeming like they got trained on how to de-escalate. Instead, they just escalate, not all, but too many. And so I'm wondering, like, is there a need for the information, instead of dismantling people's behavior from adulthood, do you help people as younger people up? Like as they get it, the training and the understanding at your level or even elementary age. But there's no dismantling and restructuring brains and all this, but instead they are being brought up in understanding. Like, how do you think that could be helpful, and how do you feel like people would be able to do that? And since you're inside of the school system, how do you think that's possible?
I think it is important to start early, because so many of the ideas and heart mindsets that people have has been ingrained in them from childhood or early. So within schools, I'm thinking even if it's role plays or just opportunities for I think the teachers to be aware of what their students' perspectives are, because they're coming from home with the mindset usually of their parents or environment, and then the teachers or educators, whoever's there, has that opportunity to influence them. So I think if it's role play, if it's how kindergarten might have a show and tell, if they do like a cultural show and tell, or they do a group circle. I've seen they call it social justice circles, where they just come and they talk about their day and That's within the special education community. So I think within mainstream and special ed, to be able to have those forums to discuss safely, have that safe space with, if you have school counselors or facilitators that can safely oversee that, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. It makes me think of slightly different, but similar in a sense that it's dealing with behavior. That image was going around, or maybe it was a video of a school that had adopted like meditation instead of detention for the kids in order to bring their energy levels to a more calm space instead of punishing them, but helping them maybe process. And I see Liz that she thinks there needs to be a reform on how to train intersectionally. Sometimes you're just thrown a handbook to figure out. Do you feel like maybe that's, Liz, you might be speaking from, are you talking about in school system or professionally, if you can message us that? But yeah, I definitely think the closer you get to a more intimate situation, the less likely you have people tuning out in a group setting, because it's really hard to really connect with people the same in a group. I think that's why there's a lot of kids that tap out in school, because the teacher's teaching towards a certain group. Okay, both, she said. And then, do you feel like you were thrown a handbook or anything like that with anything that you've been doing in your work setting, or do you feel like you were adequately trained for it?
I know you're talking about just generally, racially. No, I don't think they've done. Huh?
Were you even given anything for like diversity or anything like that to be given a handbook? Did they even encourage that?
Within my agency, they haven't done anything. I think the director's spoken just about that we should be culturally aware, but there hasn't been any initiative to train us or start that discussion within the group, which is definitely needed. I know a part of I think sociology classes should be, I think that's a good class to start to gain a deeper awareness of cultural sensitivity and how that can play a role in our perception of each other and ourselves.
That seems like it'd be a fun class. They have home ec, and I don't know if they still have these things, but home ec and life skills and stuff when we had in school. It'd be nice to have some kind of diversity class or something incorporated in there and just make it normal, because it is normal. We're all standing next to each other. They changed the from melting pot to a salad or something like that. I forget the PC term for it. When I was younger, it was called melting pot when we all came together, and now it's a salad, so people are separated still.
I haven't heard that one. Okay.
It's a salad. I don't know. It's some human being changing the terms as they go. And Tiana said it's good, to have better alternatives to help, not just reprimand. Tiana, thank you for your comment. And but yeah, this is interesting. And I also want to know, Salena, with people still being killed by the police in the midst of these protests, I just saw a video on Sean King's Instagram about a man. I don't know if it's recent. Somehow it feels very familiar, so that's unfortunate. I hope that it's not recent because it feels familiar, but it might have just happened. A man got his ribs broken by the police because they tackled him down to the ground, but he was the wrong person. And then they're, oh, I thought it was him. No, it's that guy over there. It's just like,
wow.
Okay. So like seeing these things continue to pop up, people being lynched, right there in LA County where you live. Do you think, it's supposedly still out. We're not sure if it's lynching, I guess, but black man hanging from a tree means a lot to black people, especially during this time, and other people who are sensitive to injustice. Do you think, okay, so kind of skipped over that question, but do you think hate crimes are increasing due to the outcry and the publicity? Kind of like how copycats are. So I watch a lot of detective shows, and you see people copying other bad people, because they want the publicity or whatever. You feel like Black Lives Matter movement and others similar, they're saying the same thing, are contributing to, and I'm not just insulted at all, just curious, do you feel like people are jumping on that bandwagon of hate as a reaction to the exposure?
I think that I don't know, I think it's becoming more publicized because of that. And I think the media is also playing a role in some ways in instigating and aggravating things. But especially with the lynchings, I think that is people jumping on it. And I feel like they're saying or at least, the way it feels is if they're like, if you guys are going to speak out about what you're doing, we're still going to do our things and more overtly now. I think that's the word. Yeah.
Like even more.
Yeah.
Because,
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I saw a man tell the news reporters, I don't know if I sent you that video or you saw it, that he was beat up by two Black people. It was a white guy. He was like, beat up by two Black people just because he said he yelled something out the window or whatever, and they beat him up. But then someone had a personal camera. Did you see this?
No.
Of what actually, and he had like a bow and arrow in the crowd, and he was trying to, so they jumped him to like prevent him from hurting anybody. So like, what do you feel about people like doing things like that, like just blatantly lying to the cops about stuff, or the news reporters, and how's that affecting people?
It makes me mad because I'm, we have people in the parks and saying things and knowing that if they call the police, that they know what's going to happen given the tension and given the climate of the day. It's crazy to me that people can be so insensitive and careless and cruel with in some ways with their privilege and with that certain power that they have.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel like the guy or whoever, the clerk who called on George Floyd, like called the cops or whatever on him? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think about that person? Like, what they're thinking, what they're going through, did they mean it? Are they happy? Or what do you think? Like, that's a whole human being right there that I feel like nobody's really talking about. The person who initiated the whole thing.
Yeah. I wonder if they'd probably be scared of retaliation or anything if they were to identify themselves. So I can imagine that might be something they'd feel. Because I know if it was me, I would feel horribly guilty, and that would haunt me to know that, a simple phone call led to all of this, and that they were responsible for that. It's hard. So, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel like there can be justice? Like, is it a payment for someone's life, like to the family, or is it jail time? Or should the person who called and gave that information correctly or incorrectly, should they be penalized? At what point do you feel like people are going to be satisfied with the injustices that have occurred, not to prevent future, but the ones that have occurred?
Well, I think it's different for different people because everyone has I think that viewpoint and perspective of justice in that way could be subjective. And I don't think, of course, there's no payment for the families because it doesn't bring their loved one back while it can help them, for the future. Now, personally, I don't see it as justice. What do I think what do I think could bring that? What was the part of the question?
Kind of like, I don't exactly know what I just said, but kind of like, how do we get justice backwards? Like, I know we're fighting for justice forward, but how do you think it's possible? Is there an even exchange?
Well, say with George, I would say I think all involved officers should be charged and arrested. I think for me, that would be my perspective of what justice would look like. And do I think there's an even exchange? No, I don't think. I mean, no, I don't think there is. I don't think there. I would like to say idealistically there could be, but I think that would take a long time, and I'm wondering if people have patience for that. So,
okay.
No.
And then I don't know if you answered it quite right. I don't know if I asked it quite right for you to answer it clearly, but do you feel like the Black Lives Matter movement is being productive or is productive in its efforts?
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. You're saying the movement, right? Okay. Okay. Well, yes, I think they're being productive in that they're causing people to think, they're promoting awareness, advocacy. But then I think also there's a really fine line, and I'm feeling like it's starting to go the other way, where it can also promote hatred for anyone else that's outside of the community, at the promotion of the Black community. And I think that everyone has to be really careful to not tip the scale that way, because it's like we're going against the very thing that we're supposed to be promoting, which is inclusivity, diversity, understanding for us, but also in doing it for us, it's supposed to be for everyone too. So,
do you feel like everybody's seeing it that way, or do you think there's like some people that just want it for Black people and not for everybody else? Like, are they thinking about anybody else, do you think?
Right now, I think they're focused largely on the Black community, which I understand. Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I think there's some that are able to have balanced perspectives. Each person is different with that, and it depends on their heart, their approach, and what they're choosing to promote within their circles as they're gaining, more traction, more numbers to protest or call or email, and whatever they're choosing to do, support it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was a very careful answer, but I'll let it go. Okay. Do you find it easy to love people that look like the man who killed George Floyd?
Do I think what? Repeat that.
Do you find it easy to love people that look like the man who killed George Floyd?
Me personally, or do I think it's easy for other people?
You.
Yeah.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, I think at the basic human level, it is easier to love someone that is similar to you. So for me, I know that's the first thing, but also as a Christian, God calls us to love like He loved us. And so whether it was someone that looks like George Floyd or not, I would try to, love them. And if it was, and I don't, yeah. Someone, because it's based on your question, I would say it seems like it's based on appearance only at that point. So yeah, I think it's easy for me to love someone, a Black person, because they look like me and because they're created in God's image, and I, know that. So,
what about the man who killed George Floyd? Is it easy to love people that look like him? For you?
Yes, but I think what makes it hard is beyond just like looking like him. If it's someone where you have someone who's wronged against you or against your community, it makes it harder. So for me, I have struggled with like, okay, they deserve forgiveness, but what does that look like in our hearts and also practically? So that's something I've been like praying about, because I know it's a spiritually it's a bigger battle than just race, and even murder and hatred. So at it from that level.
How do you view the cops being from South LA? Like, is there is there a perspective? We're almost done here, but is there like in South LA, is there an overall view of how people see the cops?
When I was there, I didn't. It's interesting. The only experience I had with people even talking about the cops that I can remember would be them even like, kids playing and saying, oh, 5050, right? And then they would run and it would kind of be like a game. Or there's even in that community, you might have drug dealers and things like that and people that keep lookout. And so as far as that, they're viewed as the enemy. I don't think I've specifically ever heard them that I can remember praised or viewed from a positive standpoint. So it's more of something to be feared or someone to run from. That I can, yeah.
From a young age, you're taught, like the way the kids were like 5-0 and running. They're taught at a young age to not see the police as someone to like welcome. But okay. That's unfortunate, but worth noting.
Yeah. And that was not all environments, of course, there. Because, there were times where, my mom had to call the police. I've had to call the police, and they've been helpful. So as far as personally, I've seen them as helpful, and I haven't had an experience where I've had to encounter them, and they haven't been helpful or have been the enemy, so to speak. But yeah, I've seen the perspective of it from the other side too, just in story.
So there's this upbringing, playfully, subconsciously informing ourselves that we're not excited to see the cops, but if we need something, we're hopeful that they'll be helpful, kind of thing.
Right.
Cool. And then, well, not cool, but you know what I'm saying. Next question. Next and last question here. How do you love the unlovable? You said, like, because earlier I asked about, like, how can you love people that look like the man that killed George Floyd? So how do you love the unlovable? Like the guy who killed George Floyd, maybe.
Well, my prayer is always for God to help me to see people the way that He sees them, and look beyond what they've done or not, their action or inaction. And practically, something that's also helped me in other situations is just thinking, what could have led up to that person coming to a certain decision? So I guess reframing the thought around it, around my perception, like, oh, okay, you only did this. And sometimes there's situations, of course, where perceived unlovables have done things with wrong intent and all these things, and they don't, we just don't want to love them, right? So for me, it's hard. But yeah, prayer's been the most helpful thing for me. And I think also for someone that wouldn't pray, I would say, I don't know, it's hard. I'm trying to think, like, for unbelievers, what would be a practical tip to love the unlovable, but I think you can't do it apart from the Holy Spirit and God's help to let go and forgive and release that to Him. So,
like, without being connected to love Himself, it's kind of hard to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for sharing with us, and all those human beings who are here with us, partnering with us in this chat today. Thank you for that. Please join us on the next diversity chat where we destroy ignorance before it destroys us. I wanted to say my closing before Instagram picks us off, but briefly, did you have anything, Salena, that you wanted to say other than what we shared?
No, I can't think of anything. But thank you for having me and for having the discussion.
Yeah, thank you for